Our Value of Advice ebook and podcast series is proudly sponsored by MediHelp.
Hi, this is Tony. I'm speaking to Ryan McCaughey, and he is with Hewett Wealth. Ryan, thank you so much for chatting to me today.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you for the opportunity.
Great stuff. As this is part of a series that I'm doing, chatting to as many of the past winners of the Financial Planner of the Year as possible, and just trying to get a little bit of your experience, during your journey, the wisdom that you've built up and so on, and some of the stuff that you can share with the industry as a whole, not just with other planners, but also with companies and providers of products and services to the industry, and see what comes out of it to make the industry better. So maybe just to start off with, give us a little bit of a quick overview of yourself and Hewett Wealth and how you come to be at Hewett.
Okay. Thanks, Tony. Yeah, to start right at the beginning, I grew up in the Eastern Cape, matriculated from St. Andrews College at Grahamstown. Then I went on to study a BCom at the University of Stellenbosch. And then really my passion for investments led me into obtaining a financial honors degree in financial analysis from the University of Stellenbosch. Over the last 14 years, I've built up an extensive experience in the investment industry. I've worked as a portfolio manager, an equity analyst, and as a portfolio analyst over that period for listed asset managers. And then really, I think the turning point for me was just that my passion for working with people was missing. And that led me into pursuing a career in financial planning. And then in 2017, I joined Hewett Wealth as a financial advisor, establishing the Western Cape branch in Cape Town. And it just, my personal views on financial planning, on the financial planning industry, and in the high regard I place on integrity led me to forming the business with Pete and ultimately taking part in the Financial Planner of the Year competition in 2021. I'm a director of Hewett Wealth, actively involved in the investment committee meetings and the committee itself. I'm a registered member with the Financial Planning Institute and a certified financial planning professional. Personally, I reside in Hart Bay with my wife and our 4-year-old twins, Noah and Sage. And in terms of personal activities and things out of the professional environment, I'm very active when it comes to running at the moment. Previously was involved in surf ski, Ironman, and I love the outdoors.
Okay, that sounds very interesting. And obviously brings you into contact with a lot of interesting people as well. That broadens your understanding of how people operate, how they run their lives, and those sort of things. So maybe
100%, Tony. And just on that point, I think it's so important for a financial advisor also to acknowledge those kind of experiences that you've got in life, because somewhere along the line, whether it's with a product provider or a client, you could find that mutual ground, and that, that mutual ground and mutual passion is such an important aspect when, forming a lasting relationship with an individual.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's one of especially where we are today, where people are looking, things are complicated. There's a lot of trust that needs to be held in your hands from a client's perspective. And they need to, in some way, also know you. And as you said, that's a good way of getting to that point. But maybe just from from your background, it's very clear that you are quite heavily involved in investment and understand that environment quite well and so on. From a client perspective and general, maybe not just your clients, but people that potentially are clients of the industry, communication, managing their expectations and all of that has become an absolutely crucial element, because nothing is predictable anymore. There's no longer term thing like we used to do 2-3 decades ago. How do you manage client expectations, and how do you think the industry could do better in managing client expectations?
Yeah, that's a good question, Tony, because, when you do build a plan for a client, there's a lot of, if you would say, like that initial step of anxiety trusting the advisor, putting this whole plan together. And then when the plan's put together, you've got everything from unit trusts to retirement annuities, equity, property, bonds, cash. So it can become quite daunting when you're looking at that full plan. So from our side and with the investment experience, and that's for Hewett Wealth as a whole, we place a lot of intent on educating the client through the whole process, slowly but surely taking them through each individual counter and holding and how it's meant to operate and how it fits into that long-term plan. Like you mentioned, there's so much information out there. Our role as the advisor has become more and more of a behavioral finance kind of coaching role than would say fund specific selection. It's more, you establish the plan, you get all the risk categories and everything right. And then you just maintain that behavioral finance aspect, obviously keeping some bit of leeway to change things if we're in a different cycle or events happen like the Russia-Ukraine war and all those kind of things. And then your second part of the question in terms of what can the industry do better? I think the big one, treating customers fairly, where we're starting to see a lot more coming through in terms of fees and reporting and asset allocation and all that's a big step forward. And then I think the other one is in terms of when we go to product provider events, the product provider events are becoming a lot more educational than reporting back, in my view. And I feel that's a good direction that we're heading into, that it's becoming more educational than pure selling a product, saying this is my performance relative to everyone else. There's a lot more drive to the educational aspect and the professionalism of our industry, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, because personally, I'm still quite disappointed, I would say, on the communication from companies. Obviously, I'm a client with a few companies, financial services companies. And personally, I'm actually quite disappointed as to the quality and the extent to which they actually put thought or thinking into how they communicate with me. I'm lucky that I understand, got a background in this and all of that. But I'm also somebody who, being in the media, who looks at communication critically. And there's a lot that can be done to improve that communication, to not just send, as you said, a report with
Yes.
and details and, oh yeah, this is what you have and this is where you are at, but adding that bit of value. So just based on this, then when you look at financial advisors in general, etc., what would you advise them as to what are the secrets to taking your client with on that communication journey?
Yeah. So I think that the big one is the use of technology and also streamlining your product offering. So if you can understand what your basket is that you're offering clients, so you've got your investment shopping list. If you understand how all the levers on that shopping list work as the advisor, when you sit and you do the review with the client or phone calls or updates, if you understand how all those levers of your portfolio work, it makes your life so much easier to communicate that to your clients and get them to understand it. Things go for, you've seen this big switch now from offshore equity back into SA equity and SA bonds. Automatically, everyone's like SA government, the GNU, there's a lot that still needs to stabilize. But when you actually understand the dynamics of how it's priced, what the yields are, what interest rates caps do, it's a lot easier conversation to have with the clients. So I think just to summarize that for the advisors, just to really understand the levers in your investment portfolio.
Yeah. And maybe, Ryan, to step outside of your own practice and how you do things, etc., looking at the broader industry, what is your sentiment in terms of new entrants? Do you feel positive that we are able to grow this industry with younger people coming in and growing practices?
Tony, yes. So from an FBI point of view and the way things are going now, if you look at the past winners of the last couple of years, the age demographic of those winners is very young, on the younger side for a financial advisor. So that's really positive. And then you're also seeing a lot of the thought leaders in our practice are very active on sharing their ideas on platforms like LinkedIn and Twitter or X. So I feel that we're heading in the right direction. The only thing that does concern me is it's really tough to start a business and really get a good foothold in the financial advisory industry. And you and I spoke a little bit earlier about the numbers that were shared at the Morningstar event in terms of success rates, and that's more in the US and the UK side. And that success rate is less than 50%. So I think, yeah, I'm positive on the way where things are going. There's a definite feel that the younger generation that's coming through, there's that professionalism drive to it, and also the kind of the marketing sharing side to it as well.
And what are your views on the products, the solutions, the investment advice from the industry to advisors? How do you feel about that at the moment?
Yeah, I think we've still got a way to go. There's been a big shift away to your kind of your newer age investment products. And like I spoke about earlier, is being open with what the fees are, how everything's structured. The full TIC has to be, or EAC has to be available with your proposal. So everything's out in the open. I still feel that there needs to be a big shift away from the upfront commission type products and more into the ongoing type of a product where the advisor there's a mutual beneficial relationship with the advisor and the client to keep that relationship going and to keep that growth and at least stick to your financial plan. So there's, that mutually beneficial relationship, I think is moving in the right direction.
Hmm. And do you think that the industry is providing enough emphasis on growing the advisor profession rather than just looking at creating groups of advisors internally?
Yeah, it's a tough one because I think that there is more that can be done. And I think there is more that can be done to support independent financial advisory practices. And that's been quite a hot topic in the news over the last couple of months. So I agree with that. But at the same time, establishing your practice, if you do the right things, have the right product offering, you maintain integrity and you build the right plan for your clients, referrals will come, but it just takes time. That's the only thing. And
Yeah. What are your views on internships for advisors in businesses like your own and other groups?
yeah. So completely internships, I think is something depends also on the size of the practice. So your bigger practices, you can afford to do those internships. But I think for the smaller practices, it is quite tough to get that right. And at the same time, just the cost of living, if you're going to bring in an intern in Cape Town, as an example, the cost of living here, and if you're on an intern's salary, it's quite tough.
Mm, mm. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I know when I studied law many years ago, you had this journey where you had to do your articles and you were paid absolute peanuts. So it was a great deterrent to actually do articles. And it moved a lot of people away from actually doing that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's also that internship story. So then there's also from a practice point of view, there's so much technology out there now that you can bring in that assists with things like your review reports, proposal packs, all those kind of things. So then as a practice and a private practice, is your shift more towards bringing in administration support and paraplanning support. And paraplanning, I think, is where the internship can fall into. But then at the same time, as if you want to get a paraplanner in, you want to get them up to scratch of how we do things, why we do things. So it's a big investment in that person to grow them into a financial plan. So it's,
so it's not just about money.
tough.
It's about time as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you have to spend time with interns. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Ryan, thank you so much. Thanks for all the info that you've shared. It's very interesting, and it's always a pleasure to talk with somebody to speak about this and unpack a little bit on how we grow this industry and make sure that everybody gets good financial advice.
Yeah. And I think on that point as well for other financial advisory practices is you've got to build your relationships. The relationships are the ones, whether it's client relationships or product provider relationships are really help you. And then the second one, which we've experienced a lot in our business, is just scaling through technology. So in terms of me managing my book at the moment, we're more than capable of doing that. If we do get to capacity, we'll bring someone in. We've got set number of families as a practice, but that technology aspect allows us to manage a lot more than would have been in the past. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you do more remote consultations with clients?
So it's becoming less and less, to be honest. It used to be after COVID became a very popular way of meeting. But what we really try to push from our side is we like at least one review a year in person. There's just a lot more that you can discuss and get to the bottom with in a personal meeting.
Yeah.
But if it's something that the client can't get to or needs to be done relatively soon, then clients are open to the remote interview or online at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tony.